Hi, very good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Espinosa. I'm an arts manager here at the Los Angeles City Department of Cultural Affairs in the Grants Division. I'm joined by my most excellent colleague, Muna Benguatsa. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about DCA's Cultural Grant Program, specifically the application cycle for projects that would begin in July of 2026 and no longer than June of 2027. Um, I'm I'm joined by Muna. Muna, would you mind saying hello and letting folks know how we can go about handling questions today?
Of course. Thank you so much, Ben. Welcome, everybody. We're very excited to have you on today's webinar. I am also one of the team members of the City of LA Department of Cultural Affairs Grants Division. And before I turn it back over to Ben, just a few just reminder about today's instructions for participating. As Ben mentioned, we are a large group today, so we ask that you stay muted um, to make it easier for the webinar and that you keep your cameras off as the meeting is recorded and will be later posted online. In terms of questions, we invite you to include your questions all in the chat, and we will be sure to either respond to them directly in the chat or read them aloud during the webinar. So again, for any questions, comments, please use the chat function. All right, thank you so much, and back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Muna. Wonderful. So just an overview what we can expect in today's session. We're scheduled for 90 minutes. We're going to probably take most, if not a little bit even more of that, to go over the Cultural Grant Program. We'll spend the first third of the presentation kind of going over what the program's about, basic eligibility requirements, program expectations, do's and don'ts, so that we can help you consider the program and be best positioned to prepare, number one, an eligible grant proposal and hopefully a competitive one. So we are the grants division at LA City DCA. DCA's mission is to stimulate and strengthen the quality of life in Los Angeles by making sure everyone, residents, workers, visitors, tourists, all have great access to
So
meaningful,
sorry, I need to do this sentence thing.
high quality arts and cultural services across the city. And so one of our major ways that we do that here at DCA is through our annual grant program, which is what we were talking about today. The grant program is funded through a portion of. Thank you, folks, for meeting yourselves again. Appreciate that. The grant program is funded through a portion of what the city collects through the transient occupancy tax every year. These are the hotel, motel, bed taxes. They're collected from visitors across the city of LA. Our department takes a portion of that to reinvest into nonprofit groups in the city to produce free and low-cost arts and cultural activities and presentations for the public. Um, Given what we've seen in the recent years with our grant program, the cultural grant program for organizational applicants has been about just over $3 million. We use that money to invest in over 300 nonprofits across the city who all together work to provide thousands of free and low cost activities for the Los Angeles public. We think we reach just under 2 million people each year with that level of investment. Um, Grants can range anywhere from between, very small grants from $3,000 to up to $35,000, depending on organization size and project type. The average grant across our entire portfolio tends to be just under $10,000. And again, all about providing free and low cost services to the public. All right, so let's talk about who's eligible to apply to our cultural grant program.
And Ben, just jumping here, as we have a few comments in the chat about volume,
Okay,
people are asking if you could. It, people don't seem to be hearing very well, so there might be just a case of you being closer to the
okay,
microphone.
all right. I will use my theater stage voice here. I want to
Thank
make
you.
sure everybody hears me clearly. I hope this is a little bit better. I am sitting a little bit closer to my microphone. So major eligibility components, let's talk about them. Number one, you got to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization, incorporated and based somewhere in Los Angeles County. In particular, most of you should be nonprofits with an explicit arts and culture focused mission statement. Take a look at your last board approved mission statement for your organization. Somewhere in those first 1, 2, or 3 sentences needs to be something about providing arts and cultural services to the public. If you are not an arts and culture focused nonprofit, we do have a grant category for you if you're a different type of nonprofit, maybe a social service agency, a business improvement district. You're a nonprofit based in LA. You might not be able to apply for some grant categories, but if you are producing an outdoor festival or parade in partnership with a local arts and culture organization or other arts focused group with arts and cultural expertise, you might be eligible for an outdoor festival and parade project. As I mentioned, we are a local funder. We use city funds to fund activities in our city. Because of the small amount of the funding we have available each year, we are hyper-focused on organizations based here in our region. Specifically, you need to be a nonprofit based in Los Angeles County and proposing services within the city of Los Angeles. So most of our grantees are based in the city of LA, but we have a handful of groups who are based in other cities and unincorporated parts of the county. We have grantees based in, the city of West Hollywood, city of Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Inglewood, unincorporated parts of the city, like of the region, pardon me, of the county, such as Altadena. They're all eligible because they are proposing services that take place within the municipal boundaries of the city of LA. We'll take a look at a map of what that looks like a little bit later, but just make sure you remember we are a city funder and we are interested in services within the city of LA. We are not an organizational general operating funder. We are a project funder. So you have to come to us with a project that you've done in the past with an argument for how a city investment can make it bigger, stronger, faster. And that's important because we want you to be able to tell us about at least one iteration of your project concept that has been successful in the past, where you can tell us about the range of artists that you've paid. You have fantastic photos and even better videos of the last time this event took place. So you can wow and dazzle a peer panel with the project of how incredibly produced your event and activity was. You can tell us about the range of people that attended, share some socio-demographic information about the people you serve, and basically tell a story about how successful it was, but highlighting the areas where some additional investment can make it bigger, stronger, faster, better. So make sure you remember we are a project funder. We are not interested in funding 12 months of activities that your organization does. We're interested in a project, something that can be done within 3 to 6 months. It's a subset of activities that your organization does over the course of a year. There's a range of other expectations and eligibility requirements based on the type of project that you are proposing to us that we'll go over in a little bit. But first, it's worth highlighting a few administrative considerations about our grant program. Structural elements of our program that sometimes applicants don't necessarily realize that they're what they're getting themselves into by applying to us. Our grant program is structured as a mechanism where we award to the recipient a city contract for public services. I wish we are more of like a publishing clearinghouse sweepstakes type of funder where you can show up at your door with a big fat check that you can deposit right away. But that's not the way our grant program works. If you are recommended for funding, you will get a city contract with the city of Los Angeles to provide services for the public. So what that means is if you're funded, there will be some administrative expectations of your organization. You need to be registered as a vendor with the city. You need to sign up and have a current business tax registration certificate with the city's Office of Finance. And there's a range of insurance requirements as well. If you are recommended for funding, we expect your organization to maintain at least a $1 million general liability policy for anything that we are co-sponsoring. If your organization has employees, folks in payroll, folks who receive W-2s at the end of the year, California law requires that you maintain workers' compensation insurance coverage. And more and more and more as our organizations and the reality of public services in our region, if you are working with participants who are primarily youth, especially youth ages 12 and under, the city risk manager may require sexual misconduct insurance coverage as part of general liability. So these are all things to keep in mind if you're recommended for funding with the city. As a city grant is a city contract, and that requires a series of expectations. Not required for apply, but just want to make sure what you're applying for. If recommended for grant, these are things you're going to have to deal with. Our grants are matching grants, so we will never pay 100% of the cost of a project. We require applicants and grantees match your DCA city investment at least on a one-to-one basis. So that's 50% of a total project expense, with the hopes that you will find other funders as well to contribute towards other expenses towards the project. Our modest grants can never pay for the whole thing. So do know these are matching grants that you can meet with a mix of cash and in-kind sources, and we can talk about that later. And finally, these are reimbursement grants. More and more as strains on city government budgets and staffing happen each year, what we're seeing is continued delays in the city contracting process, which translates to delays in the ability for a grantee to get an executed contract and then billing for reimbursement payments. So all that to say is that unfortunately, it's difficult to rely on the city grant as something that can provide any upfront costs toward a project you're envisioning. So to the extent that you have flexibility to consider activities that can take later on in the fiscal year, city fiscal year starts in July 1, it's very difficult for us to likely provide a payment for something taking place when the fiscal year begins, right? Because you will not yet have a contract. It'll be difficult for you to bill. So if you have the flexibility to propose activities taking place later on in the fiscal year in the springtime, like say January, February, March of a fiscal year, more likely you'll have a contract in place and be able to bill us for a much more speedy payment. So those are some quick considerations to keep in mind. And with that, let's start talking about the types of projects that we like to see you submit and propose. The vast majority of applicants will come to us with an artistic project. Not a surprise, we are funders of artistic and cultural focused organizations. Artistic projects are free and low cost presentations to the public. These are projects where you are paying a range of artists, designers, and a wide range of creative workers who are professionals at their fields, and you are paying them to do what they do best. In examples would be you're paying curators, you're paying artists honorarium for participating in museum exhibitions, for facilitating public workshops. You're funding authors and writers for literary arts events such as live readings, creative writing workshops, spoken word presentations. You are paying filmmakers, you're paying film presentation licensing fees, you're paying other media professionals and creatives like directors, technical workers to participate in panel discussions about films after the film is screened. You're paying traditional folk artists to conduct presentations and workshops, cultural and historical exhibitions and things like that, where you're paying creative workers to participate in these projects. You'll notice my examples primarily focused on non-performing arts, artistic disciplines, because we find ourselves in an odd-numbered calendar year. And it is in the odd-numbered calendar years where our cultural grant program solicits proposals in the artistic project category for these non-performing arts focused artistic disciplines. If you are an organization with an artistic project that's grounded in dance, music, theater, or multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary performing arts, this is not going to be the year for you to apply to us. Rather than applying by the August 29th deadline this year, we'll ask that you visit us again this time next calendar year when we are soliciting those types of artistic project proposals. And the reason behind this even numbered versus odd numbered calendar year app cycle is because we have many project categories at DCA's grant program. And we are tasked with convening community panel experts to read these proposals. And given budgetary constraints, staffing constraints, we rely on this biannual application cycle to allow us to convene the experts um, with sufficient resources to read your proposal. So this is going to be the year where we're going to be convening community experts in museums, from visual arts organizations, from literary arts organizations, from film festivals, out in our region, to read proposals. So we want to make sure that your proposal is grounded in these artistic disciplines, so that the right people are reading it to uh, to to uh, to assign a proper ranking and score to your proposal. I will pause there for questions, Muna, if there's anything real, if there are any questions regarding artistic projects and the artistic disciplines that we're soliciting this year.
Yes, we have a question in the chat. Just before I read the question, I wanted to respond to folks regarding volume issues. So I've turned on live captions, and if you are not seeing them, I invite you to turn the live captions on your end as well. So it would help. And also turning up the volume to the maximum will help as well. So hopefully that will solve some of these issues. Um, we had one question just going back to eligibility. So it's not about discipline per se, but it's a question from Sergio in the chat saying that we just got our 501c3 status in July, but since we were fiscally sponsored before that, we don't have a 990 yet. Are we able to apply as a 501c3 this cycle, or do we need to go through our fiscal sponsor? And if you could say a word about accept, fiscally sponsored projects, that'd be great because we had a few other questions as well on that.
Okay, sure thing. So thanks for that question, Sergio. As a 501c3 nonprofit, newly incorporated, congratulations. It may be possible we have a category that's special for emerging arts organizations. These are much more modest grants of ranging between $3,000 to $3,500, where you don't necessarily need to have those financial filings yet, as long as you're able to provide at least 1 year of programmatic and financial history. So even though you were fiscally sponsored the year ago, if you carried out the project successfully, you'll have your array of program metrics, of workforce metrics, audience attendance, some artistic samples, videos and photos of the event. You'll have some kind of financial documentation, balance sheets, and other financial statements that you can provide in lieu. Absent 2 years of operating history and the newly issued nonprofit designation. Without those histories, you can only apply as an emerging arts organization, which is a much smaller grant request. Fiscally sponsored organizations are not allowed to apply to the cultural grant program. We want you to be an independent 501c3 nonprofit by the time you apply to this grant program. There is one exception to that. We work with a nonprofit incubator based in downtown Los Angeles called Community Partners. If your project is operating as a project under the umbrella of Community Partners, which is beyond a fiscal sponsor, they provide organizational leadership, development, fundraising support, organizational support, board development support. Uh, uh, and so if you are housed under this incubating organization, you may be eligible for funding. Okay, moving along from artistic projects, as I mentioned, most of your applications most of the proposals we'll be seeing will fall under this category. The vast majority are artistic projects, free and low-cost presentations. The second most popular category are outdoor festivals and parades. This is a really fun category for us. The city loves investing in these types of events because it offers a great bang for the buck. We support a wide range of artists and creative workers while reaching very large groups of the public, as these are all events that take place in outdoor public spaces, on streets and sidewalks, public parks, and public plazas. So outdoor festivals and parades, we have a very clear definition for this. This is an outdoor event where you are presenting a thematic set of artists and groups. Important that they are non-affiliated groups and acts and artists. Not a common pitfall that we've been seeing recently are arts organizations who are applying for projects that happen to feature outdoor presentations. That for us is more of an artistic project when you are showcasing primarily your artists, your groups in an outdoor setting. An outdoor festival is one where you are presenting a range of, say, performing arts groups, musicians, spoken word artists, other creative workers who are that you may have relationships with, but may be new to you, and not organizations or groups that you may be regularly working with. We want you presenting a wide range, diverse group of acts, and in the best case scenario, have a rotating list of artists, acts, and performers each year your event is done. Those are our expectations in the outdoor festival category. It's important that you're showing at least 4 different non-affiliated groups and acts. Festivals oftentimes have other type of festival style activations where you're bringing in local community groups, nonprofit social service agencies, local businesses to participate as well. As I mentioned, these are outdoor settings and public spaces like streets, sidewalks, public parks, public plazas. This is where your music festivals will fall into, where you're showcasing a range of bands. We have a wide range of Dia de los Muertos events each fall that would apply in this category, and a range of other kind of community-centric celebrations. These tend to be annual in nature, that tend to happen around the same time each year, around a particular theme or event or holiday. Um, and um, and and they tend to draw a lot of people. In fact, we divvy up the festival category into 3 subcategories based primarily on the attendance that you last were able to achieve the previous time you produced your event. So for our very small festivals, you might even call them pop-up events. These are events that have garnered audiences of less than 500 people the last time you produced your event. Um, Tier 2 is where the vast majority of our outdoor festivals and parades kind of land. These are events that are much larger, ranging between 500 to 2,000 people. These are your block parties, festivals taking place in public parks and large outdoor spaces. And then we have a smaller subset of applicants who go into our tier 3, very, very large outdoor festivals and parades where you reach more than 2,000 people, maybe as many as 10,000 or even more. These are annual parades which span multiple city blocks where you have the entire neighborhood community, business community, residents kind of actively engage in very large events. And these tiers are important because your grant request under this project category depends on how many people attended your event the last time you produced it. Unlike artistic projects, we have a little bit more flexibility about the artistic disciplines that your outdoor festival emphasizes. If you are proposing a music festival, it is eligible, so you can apply under the outdoor festival category if you've produced a music festival in the past where you've featured a wide range of non-affiliated acts. But in these odd numbered calendar years, we do emphasize and encourage applicants who have a non-performing arts focused outdoor festival parade. So the Dia de los Muertos events, any literary arts outdoor festivals are super welcome in these odd numbered calendar years. Okay, we have a couple of other categories, much less common, but certainly allowed. The first one we call Sail Cape, and it's an abbreviation for a very descriptive project category. We call this sequential arts and school learning, culminating in after-school public events. This is a special category, and it's born out of the fact that DCA is not an education funder. We are not an arts education funder for the most part. Instead, we are a funder of free or low-cost arts and cultural activities for the general public. A lot of wonderful organizations are obviously arts education focused who spend multiple weeks, multiple months in schools, providing very robust, rigorous education in artistic disciplines. Sequential arts and learning that's grounded in standards aligned, detailed curriculum. our compromise with these types of projects is that we will support that in-school learning activities as long as that you're going to produce some sort of after-school, evening, or weekend event that is marketed to the general public. And the good news is most arts residencies in public schools do culminate in some sort of presentation to the public. Oftentimes, though, it's scheduled during the school day. So if that's the type of project you're thinking, it's going to be not allowable because we have to harken back to the name of this project category. It has to culminate in an after-school public event. So these are multi-week creative writing residencies, writing workshop series in the public school setting where your teaching artists are working for multiple weeks with an enrolled student body. And it culminates in some sort of public event after school in the evening or the weekend, like a live reading of students' work, a culminating, showcase of poetry, of other creative writing that the students have been engaged in for several weeks. These are the types of projects that would be supported under the Sail Cape category. And finally, we have another category we call FASL, which stands for Field Advocacy and Sector Learning. So these are projects where you are proposing to do sort of business training, professional conferences, peer-to-peer learning among arts administrators and artists. We are not necessarily funding artists to present as part of these projects. Rather, we are funding artists and experts in the field to share knowledge, to facilitate conversation, and to engage in other types of field building activities. Um, so for this particular category, it's a good idea to reach out to program staff, to grant staff before, as you frame and consider a proposal. Many projects that we see that might be billed as a FASL project actually turn out to be more kind of artistic project in nature because of the way the artists are being paid and the way the project's is being conceived. So do check with us first. It is a very special category and something we recommend you consult DCA staff about before submitting a proposal. I'll pause there, Muna, for any questions regarding our project categories, artistic projects, festivals, Sail Cape, and FASL.
Yeah, I do have a question from Ilana in the chat about what you just mentioned. So, what about photography workshops at a school, culminating in an exhibition at a local photo center that is not at the school? Would that be eligible?
That is a fantastic way of structuring a Sail Cape proposal. If the photography workshops are taking place during the school day and it's good and it's structured as a multi-week residency. We have a range of of organizations who do after-school workshops where they happen to take place on school grounds, and enrollment is offered not only to the kids enrolled to that in that school, but also other kids in the community who might be homeschooled, who might be attending other schools. That type of project sounds more kind of like an artistic project if it's taking place after school.
Mhm.
Sail Cape is explicitly for those relationships that arts organizations have with the school to provide in-school education, oftentimes spanning multiple months in the school year. But the concept of taking the culminating photography showcase exhibition outside of the school grounds into another community site that's accessible to the school community and the general public is a great way of securing an after-school evening or weekend showcase. More and more we hear from grantees who have difficulty scheduling an after-school event with the principals of public schools given security concerns, staffing constraints, budget constraints. So it's not uncommon for us to see savvy grantees utilize community spaces in the neighborhood to fulfill that after-school presentation that this category requires.
Thank you, Ben. And a second question before we move on from Barbara in the chat. And I know you talked about that earlier, but can you repeat a little bit more about the, you know, festival focus? So, performing arts organization who want to propose a festival, are they invited to apply, or should they wait until next year?
We
So, for
we
example, a festival with live readings, creative writing workshops, can we apply?
Live readings and creative writing workshops falls very much within kind of like our literary arts focus, solicitation this year. So absolutely, such an outdoor festival featuring those types of activities and paid teaching artists and writers, absolutely welcome. But there might be some music festival producers or dance festival producers in the room here, and the answer is we welcome those proposals as well under the outdoor festival and parade category. Yeah, it's the artistic projects where we are not convening the performing arts experts in dance, music, and theater to read artistic projects. So we don't have that panel this year, so we can't accept those proposals this year. But in the outdoor festival and parade category, um, we will develop community peer panels so that we have the expertise and background to meet the wide range and mix of the proposals that we receive, so that we'll have appropriate experts adjudicating those proposals.
Great, thank you.
So we talked about some of the eligible project categories. I think it's worth highlighting some of the unallowable projects and activities. And this list that you're seeing now is really born out of a, a sampling of proposals that we receive from year to year that just kind of missed the mark in terms of what DCA funds. So I want to make sure folks attending today's webinar are well informed of the types of projects that we cannot fund at DCA. And so this is not an exhaustive list, but I think it's a reflective of some of the common pitfalls that we see applicants make. Oftentimes, applicants come to us with private invitation-only type of activities, including fundraisers, press events, and galas. Just know these are not allowable, in large part because, for one, they're not open to the general public, and because they tend to be very expensive in nature. So expensive activities are also a no-no for us. We are a thrifty government funder. We like free and low costs, good value proposition types of activities. And when I say expensive, I mean that in a couple of ways. The easy one to envision and understand is if you're charging people a very high ticket, if you're charging folks Beyonce prices to attend a performance or a presentation, when you're charging people more than $30-40 a ticket, that becomes expensive for us, and it's not a good fit for what DCA can support. On the other way of thinking about expensive is taking a look at how much your project costs to produce. If you divide the cost of your total project by the number of people you're engaging and reaching, that gets you a cost per head ratio. So at DCA, we are thoughtful about the types of projects people are proposing. Some understanding that some are very kind of low touch but meaningful and exciting, such as imagine one of those like very large, 10,000 people, large, outdoor festival and parades. It's a fun, exciting day for maybe, an hour of experience. Uh, these events can be very expensive in nature, but you're reaching a very, very large number of people. Your total project cost per head in this case will be very, very low. It'll be oftentimes below $10 a person reached. Compare that to that Sail Cape example of a literary arts workshop series working with middle schoolers for over the course of 3 or 4 months, teaching artists working with the same kids, honing their writing skills, and culminates a public reading. We expect that to cost much more than $10 per person. That can be $100, maybe even $200 per person. So if you're depending on the level of change you're proposing in your narrative, $100 per person cost per head can be very reasonable, or it can be very, very overpriced. We'd expect to see $100 per person cost per head for a Sail Cape project, but not for an outdoor festival or parade, as an example. Contests and competitions are also no-nos. A lot of our grantees and rather applicants kind of come to us with project concepts that involve some sort of level of competition. We are averse to those types of public events. If your project does have elements of competition and or contests, it's better that you you extract those components from the project that you're proposing to us. For example, if a big part of your programmatic activity is some sort of competition, you might want to highlight the best of, of that competition at a singular public performance or presentation where you're highlighting a range of those top performing groups. That way you're still honoring the spirit of your competition. But for us, your DCA project is a showcase event where everyone is equally viewed as a winner. Projects that are primarily religious in nature or intent are also no-nos. We, as a city funder, we like to support, events and projects with broad appeal. So if you're coming to us, with let's say a Christmas sing-along concert taking place in a church, that might be viewed by panelists as leaning a little too heavily on the religious in nature and intent. So I would shy away from that kind of packaging and marketing of the event better. Maybe you describe it as a holiday themed event and come up with ways to ensure that the event is able to draw a very wide range of audiences, whether folks are religious or they celebrate Christmas or not. Open mic and open call projects are also dangerous because we'll soon discuss one of the major things that app panelists are asked to review in your proposal is the caliber, experience, and quality of the artist that you propose to pay and present as part of your project. So the dilemma of an open mic or open call is oftentimes you don't know who those artists are. So you are really, shooting yourself in the foot if you're preparing a project pitch where you're not able to tell us about the artist because you don't know who they are yet. So open mics are scary for the city because we never know, the level, quality, and caliber of the artist that would be on display. And we don't know the themes and topics folks might present as part of an open mic, which is difficult for us to adjudicate and presents a risk. Open call projects, similar jeopardies in those instances, unless if a major part of your project concept does involve some sort of RFP open call where you want to identify artists that would be featured and showcased. By the time you're submitting a proposal to us, if you had done that open call already and you have a sense of who those artists are, that might be a workable solution for a project that involves open call, because basically we want you to be able to tell us about the artists that you're going to showcase as part of your project. And finally, there's a whole slew of unallowable expenses that sometimes applicants come to us with that just cannot be supported with DCA money. And this includes any expense related to travel, food and hospitality, insurance, cash prizes, buying equipment and supplies, any capital improvements. These are not allowable. However, we recognize some projects do require these types of expenses. I mean, if you're running, a literary arts series where you're inviting a range of, highly regarded, authors and writers, you might want to bring someone in who is not necessarily within the LA area. Those expenses can be part of your project budget, but it's important to utilize budget notes so that you're letting panelists know, I know we can't use DCA money towards this. I have a private family foundation that's going to cover this expense. Let folks know that you're thinking about how you plan to earmark any DCA grant requests. And we'll talk about the best way, what we want to see folks earmarking their DCA money toward. And the answer to that is primarily towards free or low cost activities where you are paying local artists and creative workers. So I think I've emphasized free and low cost many times already. I think it bears repeating. What you are proposing to us should be a free or low cost activity that's open to the general public. We think of our grant program as a major arts jobs creator and sustainer. So the primary purpose of your grant request should be paying artists and creative people. Either they're salaried, they're part of your payroll, or you're bringing them on as guest speakers, guest presenters. If you're running a festival, you're hiring a bunch of bands and musicians, performers, or writers. So you're paying them through honoraria and creative fees. Most of your grant requests should be going toward that. Other allowable things you can put towards are like space rentals, equipment rentals, um, disposable supplies and materials and things like that. But primarily, please direct your grant money requests towards paying people, supporting jobs, especially local jobs. More and more, as an emerging priority for us, we want to see collaborations between arts organizations and non-art social service organizations. So you'll find one of the things we'll see in our when we look at our panel considerations is we love projects where an arts organization is working with a social service nonprofit and working with their community, and in the ideal case, utilizing their spaces and venues for the public presentations. So as you might imagine, it's not uncommon to see lots of free and low cost presentations in local theaters, performing arts spaces, public libraries, um, concert halls, uh, typical arts and cultural venues. What we would love to see more and more of are the use of non-traditional art spaces. These could be community rooms and social service nonprofits, um, outdoor public spaces that are not typically programmed to have the arts. We like to see this type of collaborations because it's a way of us making it's a way to spread out where arts and cultural opportunities can take place, especially in neighborhoods in the city that is relatively lacking in traditional arts and cultural spaces. And so that's our last key priority. We want to support a wide range of uh, of activities at a wide range of community sites and venues. What we're seeing more and more of is that there are venues across the city that tend to be very popular among our applicants and grantees. We're trying to come up with ways to incentivize presentations in non-traditional spaces. So think about that as you're exploring your venue selection for your project. And primarily in areas where there are relatively few arts and cultural services already. So that takes us to something about that to consider are these arts underserved LA City Council districts. Let's take a look at the map of LAC so we understand where that is at, what we're talking about. This is a map of LA City. All the council districts 1 through 15 are denoted by a color. If you're proposing an activity outside of any of these 15 council districts, you're proposing an activity that's not allowable for funding, so reconsider that. But the arts underserved areas are primarily the areas about in the far-flung San Fernando Valley, out in neighborhoods like West Hills, North Ridge, Canoga Park, um, Sylmar, Sunland, Tahunga, Coima, Panorama City, Van Nuys. These are all areas where you'd be hard pressed to find existing theaters, concert halls, museums, and venues like that. And for that reason, they are arts underserved. Ditto for South LA, areas below the 10 freeway and north of the 105 in Council Districts 8 and 9. And more, we're seeing the West Side losing arts and cultural resources. So that's become a priority area for us as well. So that's areas like Venice, parts in the Palisades, which of course was devastated earlier this year with the fires. So there is a couple links here I can share. You can check out that tiny URL link for this interactive Google map, so you can search by venue, by address, so you know exactly what council district it's located in, and then to see whether or not it's an arts underserved area. And there's also the LAC neighborhood info tool where you could punch in an address and it'll give you a wide range of information about that address, including representatives, elected officials, and council district. I'll pause there for a second. Muna, any questions regarding geography?
Not at this moment. So I wanted to invite people who have questions very specific to their proposed project or organization to email us directly, as we don't have the time to cover that in this webinar. So just email us directly to talk about your project organization, and we'll get back to you. No questions in the geography. I'll put the map link in the chat, Sergio. Yes.
Thank you, Muna. All right, so this is a big change for folks who are coming back to us to reapply. Starting in this cycle for fiscal 2026-2027, we are no longer requiring or asking applicants to prepare a data arts funder report for DCA. Rather, we have created an Excel sheet that looks very similar to the data arts funder reports that you might have provided to us in the past. So if you haven't already, do visit our guidelines where you can download a copy of this Excel sheet. It is a streamlined version of the data that is produced on your data arts funder report from the past. But it still will likely take some time to copy, paste, transfer data from the previous data arts reports and to consult your programmatic teams, consult your finance team to take a look at your audited financial statements, 990s, and other financial statements to fill this out. This is a profile about your organization's workforce, um, finances, and programmatic outputs over the last 2 or 3 years. If you're applying outside of the, if you're applying for any grant category beyond emerging arts funding support or a outdoor festival parade, we do need to see at least 2 years of operating history here. By default, this year, the form is set up to capture fiscal years 23, 24, and 25. If in the ideal scenario, you can fill out all three of those for us. If your fiscal 25 isn't completed yet, or if it is completed, but you don't have, your audited financial statements ready to go yet, we then ask you just to fill out fiscal 23 and 24. So we don't expect everyone to necessarily fill out fiscal 25, but for fiscal 23 and 24, we do expect to see that. Early feedback from the field seems to be positive. This seems to be a bit of it's a lighter lift to fill this out than to do the much longer data art survey in the past. So I hope folks will find this as a small improvement on the administrative burden that we asked as part of our application. Do start on this now. We do expect it to take a little bit more time. But the good news is once you do this once this year, you can reuse the same form next year so that you can simply add the next year's fiscal year information. Finally, let's talk about our max allowable requests and the one-to-one and how this relates to your one-to-one matching requirement. I recognize there's a lot of text on the screen right now, but I wanted to make sure all the details there. And do know we have a handy max allowable grant request tool that's available to you on the DCA website on the guidelines. So once you've completed your organizational, financial, and programmatic profile, and you have sketched out at least an initial draft of what your project budget's going to look like, you can use that maximum allowable request tool to determine the most that you can ask of DCA in your grant proposal. So allow me to just walk us through this slide really quickly. Our very large groups, these are organizations with budgets in the millions of dollars, can request up to 4% of their most recently completed fiscal year budget, knowing that you can never ask for more than 50% of your total project budget because of our one-to-one match. Our mid-sized groups, I think the majority of our applicants kind of fall in this category. These are groups with budgets greater than 75K. You can request up to 10% of your last completed year, your 10% of your total revenues from the last completed fiscal year up to a maximum of 40K. Again, knowing that you can never ask for more than 50% of your total project budget. We have a range of small organizations. These are small nonprofits with budgets that tend to range between $10,000 and $100,000. You can request up to 20% of your most recently completed fiscal year's total revenue, up to $10,000, knowing again you can't request for more than 50% of your project budget. Emerging arts organizations, these are the tiny nonprofits with budgets of less than 20K or operating histories of less than 2 years. These are very modest requests, between $1,500 and $3,000 for an artistic project. And finally, our festivals and parades. This is why it's important if you're an outdoor festival parade producer that you take stock of what tier you are to us. For our tier 1 groups who have audiences of less than 500, the last time you produced your event, you can request up to $6,000 towards your event. Tier 2 producers, these are folks who garner audiences of up to 2,000 people the last time you did your event. You can request up to 15K. And our very large event producers, these are the very multi-block street block parties and neighborhood parades where you're amassing audiences of over 2,000 people. The last time you did your event, you can request up to 40K towards your project. And again, knowing that you cannot request more than 50% of the total project budget because of our one-to-one match requirement. So that kind of is a quick summary of what you can ask of DCA. Now that you have a sense of the types of projects we're looking for, how much you can ask, here's a quick preview of our timeline. We are now in step 1 where you're attending a webinar already, taking a good step towards preparing an eligible proposal. Do plan on setting up your SurveyMonkey Apply account. That is the online platform that we use for proposals. We'll go over that in a moment. August 29th is the online submission date. This is a very hard deadline. It's the last Friday of August. Make sure you submit your SurveyMonkey Apply application by August 29th. I think it's set up to stop right at 11:59 p.m. on August 29th. That happens to be Labor Day weekend, I believe. So it's a good idea to get your proposal submitted in good time so you don't have to worry about this before you enjoy a long weekend break. We do ask for an abbreviated version of your submission in hard copy. Once you submit your online application before August 29th, you get an automatic email giving you instructions on how to download and print a PDF of your application that we can ask that you mail to us, snail mail. September 3 is the Wednesday following August 29th. We ask for this to be postmarked by that date so that we can receive it in time for our staff audit of your proposals. You're not going to hear from us for a while. We need the time between September and the spring to audit your proposals and to convene the peer panel experts who will be tasked with reviewing and scoring your proposals. Once we get their final rankings, we incorporate it into the city budget planning for the fiscal year that begins July 1st. And so that city budget doesn't come out until May or June. And so that's when you would hear from us about whether or not your proposal was recommended for funding and the next steps. And then finally, after that, those who are recommended for funding in fiscal 27 can begin projects as early as July 1, and for projects that will be completed by June 30, 2027. Quick preview of our timeline. Any questions there? I'll pause before we shift into SurveyMonkey Apply.
No question at the moment.
Great, excellent. All right, so let's shift gears a bit. I'm going to stop the share here, and I'm going to jump to DCA website. Okay. All right, so as you might know, the DCA grant guidelines are available here. Website's dcaredesign.org/grants. You will have already read this welcome message from the grants team. Before jumping into SurveyMonkey Apply, I think it's a good idea for us to understand a little bit more about the panel review process. So let me highlight that on our screen now. That Muna and I do not score your grant proposals. We facilitate conversations among community peer analysts who are tasked with reviewing and ranking your proposals. So the criteria we're looking for are these. Most applicants will be coming into us as an artistic project, and that falls under, and those proposals are scored around these 6 categories. So let me talk briefly about these categories. Administrative capacity accounts for 10 points out of 100 of your proposal. This is, basically it's the strength and health of your organization financially and programmatically. Do you have a robust board of directors representing a wide range of experience and backgrounds and expertise areas? Are the organization financials healthy and sound over these last 2 or 3 years, especially of all the crazy things that our region has gone through in the arts world? Is there good executive leadership, board leadership? Basically, you're telling panelists our organization is healthy, running well, and so that's how you get maximum points on that criterion. Artistic merit is something we ask panelists to rate for our small, mid, and emerging size artistic projects. This is the quality and the caliber of the various artists and creative workers that you're going to be showcasing and paying as part of your presentations. You wow panelists with this category with excellent artistic samples, videos and photos, and artist CVs. Geography and demographics constitutes 10% of your overall 100-point score. And let's harken back to that map I showed earlier. You get the maximum for this category if you're proposing activities in the arts underserved areas of the city. So again, that's the San Fernando Valley and Council Districts 3, 6, 7, and 12. And in South LA, Council Districts 8 and 9. And the far west side in Council District 11. Ideas and intention. This is where we're asking panelists to rate is it a cool, exciting idea, new idea that you're proposing, that you're iterating with your project, or is it a tried and true concept that has proven to be really effective in achieving your project goals? So that's what those 20 points are all about. Impact. This is the extent to which you are achieving the change in your audiences and project participants. Are the extent you are incorporating really rigorous, pre and post feedback surveys and mechanisms to continually improve your project. This is how you would garner those points under impact. Relevance relates to the extent your project relates to the community that you're targeting and seeking to serve. Are you presenting community relevant themes and topics of interest and of high relevance to the neighborhoods that you are primarily targeting through your project? And it also is how that also rates to what extent you're meeting DCA's funding priorities of free and low cost activities, jobs for creative workers, and maximizing access to arts and culture, especially in arts underserved areas in the city. Folks applying under the other categories of FASL, our large budget groups and outdoor festivals, we are not assessing artistic merit in these categories. Rather, we are rating you with the other categories and versions of them. Ideas and intentions the same. Quality and community partnerships kind of takes the place of the relevance and ideas and intention. That's rather no relevance. So when you're applying under the large budget category, outdoor festival category, FASL, we're primarily interested about the partnerships you're fostering and building as part of your project. The other thing to keep in mind, and I alluded to this earlier, is that we really want to explore and encourage applicants to consider partnerships with social service nonprofits who are not necessarily arts focused. This has become kind of like an area for investment that's ripe for more focus. We love the idea of arts organizations working with youth and family groups, medical centers, housing focused organizations, other wide range of social service agencies to work with their community and clients, and to produce a culminating event or presentation utilizing their spaces. That does a few things for us. It builds partnership community among our arts organizations with other groups. It utilizes non-traditional arts spaces for public presentations. So we are exploring how we can assign bonus points to organizations who produce projects that kind of meet those goals of collaborations with social service agencies and utilizing non-traditional art spaces. So having a sense of what the panel review process is like it's a good idea then to go into our application. So everything you enter in a proposal should to some degree respond to one of those scoring criteria that for your proposal. So let's get to that. To get to your application, click on apply under the guidelines. There's a link to SurveyMonkey apply. We'll click on that. If you're not logged in, as I am here, you'll see this welcome page from the DCA platform. You can see that the Cultural Grant Program is up and live now. I'm going to log in now with I have a little example account to work with here. If you haven't registered for an account yet, do so by clicking on the green button that said register. It is important that you are registering yourself as an organization because only organizational applicants can apply to our cultural grant program. I logged in. You can see that I'm not seeing, there it is, cultural grant program. If you click on programs, you'll see that there. I'm going to try to click on it, but you can see I can't apply to it. And the reason is because my account is set up so that I'm both an individual artist applicant, which is not eligible for this program, and I also represent an organization. So if for whatever reason you're not able to apply once you log in, just make sure that you are selecting the organization that you're representing under this pull down menu in the upper left-hand side. So here's my organization affiliation. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now I'll be able to see programs I'm allowed to apply for, including the Cultural Grant Program. Now I have a green apply button there. Rather than clicking on that, I have a pending application I'd like to showcase with everybody here. I'm going to continue this. And this is what you'll see on the user side of a pending proposal. This is your checklist of to-do items before you're able to click on submit. I can't click on submit until I complete all the required components. And you can see those required components listed here. There's several of them. You can tell your progress by looking at the little icon on the left. This little grayed out circle is something you haven't started yet. This half moon icon is something you have started but haven't completed. And something you've completed is marked by this green check mark. Most of your proposal will exist in the very first item, which is the actual application itself. So let's start off by clicking into that. If you're coming back to reapply from prior cycles, you'll be pleased to know we have very little changes. Everything is pretty much the same. So if you've submitted a successful proposal in the past, not a bad idea to just revisit what you prepared in the past and just update any pertinent information with respect to contacts, board membership, artistic direction, leadership, and to update your project narrative as needed to reflect the updated topics and themes and project concept you plan to propose. So we try to do very, very little change on the application from year to year to make as easy as possible the application process for folks. So the proposal of your application submission consists of 3 main pages. We're on the first page of it now. I'm sorry, take it back. I'm on the budget, not the first page. Let me go back to the first page. This is the first page of the proposal. Oh, I was on the second page. Okay, first page. Basic information about your organization. No surprises here. Give us your organization legal IRS name. So that is the name that shows up on your IRS designation letter. Please provide that there. You can use a second field to provide a more common popular name if it's different. Physical location of your organization, headquarters and offices. This should, in all likelihood, match the most recent tax filing you submitted to the IRS. One of the very first checks the staff does is to make sure you're based in Los Angeles County. So if for whatever reason the street address is somewhere outside of LA County, in all likelihood, you're probably not eligible to apply. So make sure that this reflects your Los Angeles County headquarters office. We ask for main contact, of course, and a secondary contact just in case there are staffing transitions between the submission of your proposal and when you hear from us many months later. We like to know what kind of preparation work you put toward this proposal. Everyone who's attending today can check that box that you attended. Sorry, pardon me, the second box. You participated in a live online grants webinar. And then the second question is project type, very important. Again, most people will be picking the first one, artistic project, but we have the other categories that we spoke about available to you here. If you select artistic project, we do ask that you designate which artistic discipline you are applying under. As I mentioned, we are soliciting proposals in culture history, design, visual arts, literary arts, media arts, and trad and folk arts. If you have an artistic project in dance, music, theater, do you know we are not accepting new applications in those artistic disciplines for artistic projects? If you are a festival producer, please designate whether or not you are a very small, less than 500 people festival, if you're in our 2,000 person range, or the very, very large groups, garnering audiences of well over 2,000 people. When you select a festival category, one of the things we ask is to what extent you are planning to present a new range of artists, groups, and acts. We expect that you are, number one, of course, showing 4 non-affiliated groups, and then that there is some level of artist rotation from the last time you presented this. Not a good thing if you're coming to us planning to present the very same artist the last time you did your festival. In all likelihood, you will have an updated, refreshed lineup. You may feature some of the same, but we're also interested in to what extent you're going to be showcasing new acts. Budget size and category, this is where you tell us how you want to be viewed and adjudicated by your peer panelists. There is some overlap between, these budget categories between emerging, small, mid, and large, and that's intentional. We want you to tell us how you want to be viewed by the panelists. Do you want panelists to know that you are still operating as a small organization on the cusp of becoming a mid-sized group? Or are you a freshly minted mid-sized group who've been consistently operating at greater than 75K? This is your opportunity to kind of like indicate kind of what size your organization is to you. And then finally, this is where you would enter your grant request and a recap of how big your organization was in terms of operating revenue in the most recently completed fiscal year. So again, this requires you having completed your organizational, financial, and programmatic profile. There's one line on that form, line 8AF, that shows your total revenue less in kind from your most recently completed fiscal year. That's the number we're asking for here. And then this number here is how much you're asking of DCA. Before you enter this number, do go through the step of using our allowable grant request calculator. So you are entering a number that's allowable. A common pitfall is folks are entering a dollar amount that's well above what they're eligible to ask. So DCA will have to call you back and let you know that you asked for too much money. We're modifying this grant request to be suitable. You don't want that to happen. So here's our allowable grant request calculator. Once you've completed your organizational profile form and you have a sketch of your project budget, so you have a sense of how much things will cost, you can use this. So first thing, let's say I'm a mid-sized group. I'm operating. I did my profile form, and my recently completed revenues for fiscal 25 was $80,000. I'm firmly in the mid-sized category. I'm selecting that box. I'm planning a project, and I'll put that $80,000 here. Regarding my project, I'm going to do an artistic project. Let's say I'm going to do a series of costume-themed design exhibitions for the public. It's an artistic project. I select that button there. I'm anticipating a project budget of around $16,000. Put that in, and I'll click on the calculate button, and I'm advised I can request no more than $8,000 with my grant request, given that information. And if you scroll down here, it has an explanation for how that was calculated. So do take advantage of that tool. We find that has kind of dramatically reduced the number of unallowable grant requests we receive. So make sure you take advantage of that when you're filling out this section of the form. All right. We asked for an indication from you kind of what your primary goal is with your project. Some folks are all about providing free and low cost activities for the public. Some people are really emphasizing cultural arts jobs. It could be multiple. We ask for you kind of like isolate the top 2 primary goals of your project, so you have a sense of what you're trying to achieve with your project. Next question asks which council district your organization is headquartered. Many of our organizations will be headquartered in the city of LA, in which case you can select one of the 15 council districts. I used in my example our DCA's downtown LA headquarters, which is in the 14th council district. If you're located in Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Inglewood, Altadena, outside of the city of LA, you can click this button and enter a little clarification where you're based. Next question asks which council district you're planning your services in. So obviously, this is limited to the one or more of the 15 council districts. You can't propose activities outside of the 15 council districts. So we ask that you select no more than 4, because we want you to be as focused as you possibly can with the scope of your project. We know that lots of our applicants and grantees have activities and services taking place throughout the city of LA, throughout LA County, the LA County region. For the purpose of your project, isolate the 1, 2, or 3, or 4 council districts that you really want to focus on. And this is a great way for you to be strategic in scoping out your project to meet DCA funding priorities. As I mentioned multiple times, we're especially interested in services in the arts underserved areas in the city, in the San Fernando Valley and in South LA and the far west side. So if you have the flexibility, if you're doing programs all over the city year round, one of the easiest way to kind of scope out your project for us is to focus on the activities taking place in the arts underserved areas. So in my example here, I'm focusing on the 6th and 12th districts in the Valley and picking only those 2. Online activities and broadcast and media. Let me talk about that for a second. So especially in these odd numbered calendar years where we have, media applicants, broadcast, radio applicants, we can allow for these online activities with a couple of caveats. Number one, the broadcast, the virtual activities need to be produced within the municipal boundaries of LA City. So if you run a radio station that's based in the city of Beverly Hills, or if it's based in Malibu, but you're reaching LA City audiences, that type of broadcast activity is not allowable because the production space and activities are not taking place in LA City. So do know we can allow for this as long as you're producing these online virtual activities within LA City municipal boundaries. And the other caveat is this is okay. Online activities where you're reaching very wide range of audiences is allowable if you have built-in mechanisms and strategies to collect meaningful socioeconomic and demographic data about the people you're reaching. It is not enough to tell us, oh, we have a radio station, we have a broadcasting operation that reaches millions of people across the world. We're primarily interested in the audiences in LA. So whether or not it's Google analytical tools, registration tools where you ask folks to register to access, on-air virtual broadcast content, surveys that you dispatch out to the community. You need some sort of mechanism so you can provide some meaningful data about your audiences in LA. Okay, so beyond project type and geography, on this first page, we ask for your anticipated start and end date for the project. Please don't make the common application pitfall of entering July 1 through June 30. You've basically just entered the entire fiscal year. We're actually interested in the project dates. So if in my example, if I'm thinking about two exhibitions that will be open to the public for 20 days each, let's say, I'm envisioning, a 6-month project spanning from, like September through to the early spring of the following year. So let me actually bump this up and make that 6 months. There you go. Yeah, very, very unlikely you're proposing a project that will span more than 6 months because given the size and scope of the projects we encourage you to propose to us. Give us a little very kind of a high number overview of the number of people you expect to reach. Number one, project participants. So this can be, your staff, your teaching artists, your paid artists, administrative support, any workshop participants. This is where you would put this in. Number of audience members. So this is where you would tell us about the vast members of the general public who will be attending and experiencing your project. Those are the numbers there that you would enter. And then identify for us any special constituencies. And be thoughtful about this, because if you select more than, for every checkbox you're going to select, we expect to see a little narrative explanation about your outreach strategies and your track record with reaching these groups in a subsequent narrative section. So, for example, if you're going to select adults general and then correctional residents, adults and their juveniles, we expect some part in your narrative where you tell us about your staff who have this expertise working with this community, this population, and track record and past experiences working with drawing those types of audiences. That's page 1 of the application, and I forgot to fill out something, it looks like. It's alerting me that I forgot to select one of these questions for my festival question, so I'll go ahead and mark that. All right, page 2 kind of has all the narrative components of your application. So this is a good section to copy paste the questions onto like a Word document, so you can prepare your materials in advance, take advantage of the various word processing tools like spell check, grammar check, word counts, character counts, because the sections are limited by characters. So give us your mission statement. Literally copy and paste your last board approved mission statement for your organization and paste it here. If you're an artistic organization, we expect to see something in the first few sentences of your mission statement about providing arts and cultural services to the public. If you're an outdoor festival producer, parade applicant, it doesn't necessarily have to have that, but do include your mission statement here. We've had instances of applications from very large organizations, and they enter into this field rather than their mission statement for their organization, like a vision statement or project vision statement for one of the many programs or initiatives they do. We don't want to see that in this section. We're interested in the overall organization mission statement. Give us a little bit of detail about the history and programming for your organization. Emphasis on recent. Panelists like to understand what has been new or what are some challenges that organizations are dealing with in these last 2 to 3 years. So you can enter 1 or 2 sentences about when your organization was founded, how long you've been operating, but emphasize in the detail what has happened and what you've been doing in your organization in the last 2 or 3 years. Planning or leadership, give us an understanding of how your organization is led. Is it operate like a collective style? Is there an involvement of democratic leadership where you involve other members of the group, or is it more kind of like very strong leadership by 1 or 2 or 3 people? Give us a panelist understanding of how your organization is run, what extent the board is involved and executive leadership is involved, and any recent challenges or changes that have taken place in the last 2 or 3 years. Tell us a little bit about the core audience your organization reaches, and to some extent what your project is going to aim to do, and with respect to that community and core audience. We want to understand who you reach, who you kind of emphasize programming for, so that the panelists know. You're setting them up to understand the strength of the relevance and connectivity between your proposed activities and programs to your core audience. Artistic policy, give us a brief narrative about how artistic decisions are made in your organization. Is this a major role primarily meant for your artistic director? Is there more of a, again, democratic process where there is a collective kind of process when it comes to artistic directions and decision making? Give us a sense of that in this section. And all these questions, by the way, that I've just listed are marked by this sunburst icon because these are questions asked by other funders in our region. I know Los Angeles County in their grant proposal asked for the same question. So if you recently prepared a proposal for them, you might be well positioned to simply copy and paste those responses into this. Now we go to the unique section for your DCA project. This is the project narrative. This is where you really put down, any kind of marketing, razzle dazzle kind of language and focus on more kind of boring, legal, technical, journalistic type of writing. We want the technical specifications of the project you're proposing. And in fact, we're quite prescriptive about it. We've given you kind of like a template to use for your first 2 sentences. We want a very concise, brief explanation of what you are proposing to do with DCA money. So here's an example. We are seeking DCA support to produce and present 2 new costume design theme exhibitions, each available to the public for at least 20 days at such and such social service agency community center in Northridge and such library in Panorama City. All to take place in the fall, winter of 26-27. With those 2 or 3 sentences, you've given the panelists an understanding of what the scope and goal of your project is. And then you use the subsequent language to tell us about how this is a subset of what your organization does over the course of the year. Because when you are using the space to tell us about what your organization does over the course of 12 months, you're probably not arriving at what we call a project. We are looking for a subset of what your organization does, and you are defining what that subset is here. You're going to tell us about, in this example, the artists whose works will be featured in this exhibition, where they're from, what their presenting history is like. You're going to talk about any additional audience engagement, education opportunities, like associated workshops and talks with the artists involved. You're going to explain what kind of topics and themes are going to be showcased in this project and why they relate to that core community and audience you described in the previous page. You're gonna mention what the desired outcomes of this project will be, what will the exhibition visitors, workshop participants get out of experiencing this project. You're going to tell us about the various organizations and partners and collaborations you might be tapping into to make this project a reality. And then finally, tell us how, emphasize how this advances your organization mission while also responding to the priorities of DCA. So all of that in this section kind of is will let the panelists know, that you're thinking about a project that is consistent with your organization mission and how well it addresses DCA's funding priorities, and giving us a sense of the quality and character of the event that you're planning to produce. And everything, and remember, if you're writing this section and there's no element of a free or low cost opportunity for the general public to access, do revisit it. Some pitfalls that we do see sometimes is, folks will come to us, oh, we have a workshop series, where we're going to engage, maybe 20 or 30 people. Let's say it's a poetry workshop series, taking place at a community center. But there's no talk about a public showcase or presentation. So there might be some allusion to it, but that public presentation culminating showcase is one of the most important parts of a project submitted to us, because it's the element of the event of the project where Muna and I can easily show up and attend. We may not be able to participate in 5 weeks of intensive workshop activities, but we'd love to see the showcase event. So do specify the dates, times, and nature of those events in this section. You'll have an opportunity to embellish on some of your desired outcomes and outputs of this project. Tell us about, since you've done this project before, you can highlight some of the really wonderful things that you were able to document in terms of impact from the last time. And you can allude to reviews that are published. You can refer to feedback you received from participating families, adult participants, and so forth. And to the extent that you can actually upload copies of those testimonials, and feedback, survey results, analysis reports, that would be great to include as a supplementary item as well. The next section on this page is you get to brag about all the wonderful staff and artists that you plan to engage as part of this project. Certainly talk about your organization's employees and key staff members who will be part of the project, but also highlight the range of artists, performers that you plan to pay as part of this project. This list of participating artists and key staff goes a long way in convincing panelists that you have a strong bench of administrators and creative workers for a successful project. So that's the narrative section of the proposal. The last page, the third and last page of the proposal is the financial items. So this is where you provide a project budget, okay? So avoid the pitfall that many applicants often do is they submit to us a budget that is more organizational and programmatic in nature. They submit a budget that reflects activities over the course of an entire year. We are looking for your project budget in this section. So if your proposal to us is a 5-week live reading series taking place at at such and such venue, I expect to see the expenses to make those five that series of 5 readings happen. I want to see the expenses only for those events and the associated revenues for making that happen. So avoid the pitfall of submitting a programmatic, rather a general operating budget here. Make sure you are submitting a project budget. So the first side is the income side. You'll see that we've kind of outlined likely common categories. Do take advantage of that. I would say in most cases we have something here that captures your anticipated revenue and or expense category. So for example, I have here admissions. I'm planning an event that is totally free to the public. Not a bad thing to remind panelists that you're thinking about that by entering a 0 here, no income, and when it comes to admissions, exhibition is free and open to the public. We allow for low-cost activities, so if you are planning a series of presentations where you're charging the public for a ticket of $20 or less, you might enter an estimation of total revenue to be collected as part of that, and use the notes to clarify to panelists how you're arriving at that number. We're expecting an audience of 100, average ticket price of $10 per person gets you $1,000 in revenue. Okay. Contributed income will be a much more likely fleshed out section of your project budget, SBC. This is where you can outline board member contributions, private individual contributions, any private foundations you're in talks with about supporting the project also. Everyone will have something for line number 21. And at the very least, this will include the dollar amount you entered on page 1 of the proposal. Make sure to incorporate that dollar amount here. We've seen project proposals where they have a submitted budget where there is nothing for line number 21, where they are in effect telling us they are producing this project without any DCA support. So don't do that because you're applying for funding. Make sure you include how much funding you're asking of the city in this line. We have lots of grantees who are also grantees of LA County. They apportion a percentage of their OGP general operating grant towards a project. That's not uncommon for us to see. And there are other government funds as well, including the state. And so outline those sources of revenue here too. It'll auto-calculate your total income, $16,000. That's good. So that's what I was anticipating. Just make sure that we are looking for balanced budgets here, project budgets. So when you are outlining $16,000 income, we expect to see $16,000 exactly in total expenses. So in this section, you outline your planned expenses. So you can see our very first line is artists and performers and salaries. So these are the people in your payroll who are creative workers that you plan to pay as part of this project. Have an estimate there, and do take advantage of the notes to explain to panelists how you calculated that. We love supporting arts administrators too, so include a portion of your administrative staff for who are responsible for making sure the project is successful. Again, take advantage of the budget notes. Always let panelists know how you're arriving at that number. We have additional expenses here as a sample. In all likelihood, you'll have a range of expenses here for artists who are not salaried. So these are your honoraria, creative fees for your guest artists, workshop facilitators. This could be, the range of designers, photographers you're involving to document your project. You might want to, they might be categorized as non-salaried creative fees. This is the field to use for that. I included a sample here for catering and hospitality. As you know, as we mentioned earlier, catering and hospitality is not something you could use DCA money for. However, we understand that some projects do need this as an expense. So we encourage you to, when it's appropriate, include a dollar amount there, but make sure to utilize the budget field to let panelists know you're aware of that funding restriction and that such an expense would be covered by a range of your other matching funder sources. We have equipment rental expenses and other facility expenses, including space rentals. And those are and that gets us some sample expenses of $16,000. That matches up exactly. And what you'll find here is that the application calculates for you that cost per head ratio by taking your total project expenses, in this case $16,000, and dividing it by the number of people I anticipate reaching with the project. I think I had 800 or some people in my estimation in this example. Gets me a cost per head ratio of about $20 a person. For an event where I'm planning, free public exhibitions, that seems to kind of jive with what we tend to see across our portfolio. That wouldn't raise any flags necessarily. But it's a good check to see if this dollar amount is very, very high. Do take stock of, oh, what's the level of change I'm proposing in my narrative? Does it make sense? Is that something that is a good value? And I gave you the examples earlier about, if it's a festival event where you're reaching, potentially tens of thousands of people, $20 might be a bit high for that project. We tend to see those events of that scale reaching a cost per head ratio of well under $20. We don't compare that to a multi-week residency at a public school, creative writing workshop series that culminates in a live reading. That will probably cost a lot more than $20 per person. Okay, so once you complete the budget section, that completes the proposal portion of your application. I can mark that as complete now, and I'll get a satisfying green check mark in my application section. Next item up is that financial and programmatic profile. So we click on that link there to download an Excel copy of that link of that document. Fill it out. You'll see the green sections of that form. Those are the fields that you fill out. The gray areas are auto-calculating. Once that's completed, we ask that you upload it here in its native Excel format. Avoid PDFing it or submitting it in Apple Numbers or another form. Please turn it back to an Excel sheet so that our system can process it and present it to panelists in a consistent manner. So let me go ahead and upload a little placeholder document for that. Now, if you are a non-arts organization, non-arts nonprofit, or an emerging, a tiny emerging arts organization, you are not necessarily required to upload this. You have the option of uploading in lieu of a financial and programmatic profile, recent financial statements, and your most recent IRS 990 form. You can upload that in lieu here if you are eligible for that exception. Most of our applicants will probably be required to fill this out. If there are crazy variances in your programmatic and financial numbers in your form, here's an extra section where you can provide a little narrative explanation for panelists to see. A good idea if you're seeing numbers dip or go beyond or jump 25% or more from the prior year number, it's a good idea to include some additional text here, so you're giving panelists a sense of what happened in that little explanation for that jump or decline. With that submitted, I can go ahead and mark that as complete. Great. You'll have an option to submit additional financial backup documents. Many of our emerging arts organizations, I think we had a question earlier, someone who hasn't filed a 990 yet, you might want to upload recent financial statements signed by your board treasurer in lieu. You can upload that there. If you have additional financial documents, you can use this optional section to provide a financial snapshot and even more documentation regarding any crazy variances your organization might have experienced. One item you're going to upload is an IRS designation letter. That's a must-have. Make sure to upload a copy of that in that section. Board of Directors list is also a common pitfall many applicants might do is they will upload a pre-prepared list of board of directors list that's not on DCA's Excel worksheet. We ask that you use DCA's board member worksheet because again, it'll highlight your board list in a consistent manner for our panelists to see across the many proposals they're reading. So please use DCA's Excel worksheet and upload that in, you're allowed to upload that in PDF or Excel format. Let's go ahead and do that. Uploaded, and I'll mark that as complete. Okay, artistic samples is the next section. Super important section, especially when you're trying to convince panelists of great and strong artistic quality of your work. Where you can, unless this is a year where we're having a lot of design and visual arts applicants, in which case if static images can be effective artistic samples. Anything that has any kind of performance or live presentation element, we encourage you to dig up some really compelling video examples of the last time you did those events, as this is really an opportunity to get panelists away from reading words on the page or on the screen to watch an exciting, inspiring video, see some really remarkable photos of great art. So do utilize this section as an opportunity to dazzle panelists with some wonderful artistic documents and samples. If you're going to go the routes of links, of hyperlinks, you can do so by clicking on the links button. You'll have an opportunity to upload up to 3 hyperlinks. You can include direct links to a YouTube video, a Vimeo file, a video, maybe a Google Drive or Dropbox folder, knowing that we ask panelists to spend no more than 5 to 6 minutes per applicant. So be thoughtful about how you're curating the links or images you're sharing, knowing that panelists won't have a whole lot of time reviewing. So if it's a lengthy video sample, for example, it's a good idea to either edit that video to be a nice bite-sized portion, or to specify in the notes section here, or the description section of the URL, the specific time start and end points you'd want the panelists to focus on. A common pitfall as well is applicants might provide a link that is password protected. You can do that, but do make sure that you're sharing with the panelists in the description section the appropriate credentials to use so that they can view the video. We do not have the opportunity to go back to applicants and let them know, hey, you uploaded a link that they can't access. If that's the situation, panelists will be advised to score accordingly to what they are able to see in the proposal. So if you have the ability to, do share easily accessible links that don't require those things, that don't require any kind of password. But if you do want to use that, you can make sure to enter those credentials in this field. All right, that's the artistic samples. With images, you have the option, if you want to go the route of static images, you can upload up to 10 static images. Go for high quality images. When panelists are viewing images on SurveyMonkey Apply, it's like a carousel style viewing tool where they can easily scroll through images. The better quality images, the better. So they can, especially if images you're trying to highlight feature some incredible close-up detail. It might not be a bad idea to include images from afar, and then maybe a close-up if you're showcasing a singular object. All right, I'm going to mark this as complete so we can move forward. I'm aware we are past the 90-minute mark, so forgive me if I am kind of speeding up a little bit here. I want to make sure we get through the entire item here. Okay, very good. Complete, great. All right, next item up is supplementary materials, also a very important section. First up as a supplementary material is your project location attachment. On this document, and you are free to format this in the way you'd like, just make sure it's easy to understand and read. We want to understand the name of the venue or venues that you plan to produce your events at. Give us the address, the city council district, and the name and title of the contact person that you're connecting with at the venue, and the number of years you've presented at that site. This gives panelists a sense of, oh, they have this long-standing relationship with the venue, very likely that they'll be able to go back there and produce and present services for the public. Or if it's a brand new location, it's also good for the panelists to understand that this might be your first year working with this group, this organization. Also, new this year, we are asking applicants to, as part of your conversation with venue operators, is to get a sense of how many other DCA applicants or grantees are going to them for services there. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are trying to kind of spread out where artistic presentations and public activities take place, rather than having a whole bunch of grantees utilize the same church, concert venue, or theater for presentations. We want to really, in the ideal case, have no more than 3 DCA grantees or DCA sponsored activities at any one location. We'd rather incentivize, as I mentioned earlier, more newer, non-traditional arts and cultural spaces. So ask the venue manager, hey, do you have a sense of how many other DCA grantees program their activities here? Go to those conversations equipped with an understanding of who DCA's grantees are by visiting the DCA grantee website, so who else is going there. In many cases, panelists are reviewing proposals. They're all proposing activities in the same location. And sometimes panelists are asked, who do we want to privilege for that location? It might be the organization who has an existing footprint in that community and neighborhood, and it might put the touring organization who's proposing that location at a disadvantage, because a panelist might want to prioritize funding the local indigenous group beyond over the person who might be touring. So it's a good conversation to have with your prospective venues. Talk to the venue managers, ask them, hey, are there other DCA grantees who program here? There's if there's a really big list of other DCA grantees at that site, it might be to your advantage to focus on an alternate location. But this list also will be used to cross-check all those check boxes you marked in the proposal about your target council districts. We want to verify that the venues you're proposing are lined up with those council districts. We've had applicants who propose in their attachment A locations outside of the city of LA, so avoid that. You can include lists a wide range of locations across the city, but never any outside of LA City. Prior year paid artists. So this is a great attachment to include to show panelists, that the level and caliber of the artists that you've paid in the past. It's a nice complement to the list of proposed artists you plan to pay in your proposal. It gives panelists a sense of the extension of your partnerships and the quality of creative workers that you'd be paying. So do take advantage of that upload. Make sure that you find as complete a list as you can. We understand you're proposing activities many months in the future, but this is why this list of prior year paid artists you should have readily available. And in this attachment, do highlight the ones who are based in LA and in the neighborhoods that you plan to do your activities in. Panelists like to see that applicants are emphasizing paid artists who are of and from the community that they are seeking to serve. Press material. So this is where you get a chance to provide an outside perspective and voice on the quality of your programming in the past. We understand it can be difficult to find recent press material in the last 1 or 3 years. So if absent a press piece about your event and service and your project in the past, an unsolicited letter from someone who participated in your workshops and presentations in the past can serve as a good substitute here. We're interested in an outside voice, someone who can tell us about the impact and quality of your programming. Curriculum and lesson plans. So this is an important attachment especially for our Sail Cape applicants, because you cannot propose a Sail Cape project without a rigorous curriculum that is aligned with the California Arts Learning Standards. Um, Sail Cape projects are adjudicated in a Sail Cape panel that will feature experts in arts education, art specialists from the LA Unified School District. So they will be familiar with a multi-week sequential arts learning curriculum. It's a required attachment if we're proposing that type of project. Make sure to upload that. And there's no page limitation on this. We want you to feel comfortable in uploading as detailed an attachment as you can. We also have a range of applicants who might not necessarily be doing a Sail Cape project, but have some sort of educational component to their project. While not required, we strongly encourage you to consider uploading a sample lesson plan or educational outline, statement of educational goals and strategy for achieving that in this section, so that panelists have a sense of the level of detail and thinking you are putting into the educational components of your project. All right. Non-arts partners. I think as I've mentioned multiple times, we love uh, the opportunity to support projects that involve collaborations between arts organizations and non-arts focused nonprofits and other organizations, local businesses and residents and neighborhood groups, residential groups, things of that nature. Do take advantage of this. You'd be surprised how many applicants do not take advantage of this optional upload of showcasing letters of support from their non-arts collaborators. Panelists like to see this also, and as these application cycles become more and more competitive, every little bit counts in terms of demonstrating your community relevance and the quality of your community partnerships. So take advantage of this. And we know arts organizations are already partnering with non-arts groups. Just get them to write a letter of support. It's a good thing to share. A letter of recommendation is the last attachment here. This can be an additional letter of support from a past event or project participant, another testimonial. Outside voices are always a strong way of convincing panelists that your programs are making an impact and making a difference in the communities you're reaching. Okay, after completing the supplementary materials, we have a section here where we ask you to provide a little bit more information about the planned reach, socio-demographical reach of the proposed project. It helps panelists understand it's a quantitative accompaniment to the qualitative description you have about your outcomes and goals. So giving us a little bit of numbers to back up your desired outcomes with your project is helpful here. And finally, an optional process evaluation feedback form. Luna and I always appreciate candid feedback about how these workshops go and how you find the application process. We use that to inform future iterations of the grant proposal. The move away from the data arch report is one example of the changes that we would do as a result of feedback we receive from the field. So do know we appreciate the feedback you can share there, positive and critical. Once you've completed all of those required items, you'll see, if you go back to your checklist, you'll have a green submit button there. Before clicking on that submit button, you will please double check, triple check all the components in your application. Common pitfalls are sometimes narrative sections in your proposal get inadvertently truncated and cut off because you've exceeded a character limit. In the attachments section, sometimes you think you're uploading your letter of support, but you actually re-uploaded your attachment A locations again. Double check that what you uploaded is exactly what you intended to upload. Because sometimes we do not have the capacity to go back to applicants to ask for replacement files, just because we don't have the capacity to do it. And so you might be, penalized in the review process by panelists because they don't have a letter of support that you said you uploaded. So make sure to double check that all your desired files are uploaded successfully. And then before clicking submit, proofread it one more time just to make sure it looks good. And get rid of all the inadvertent typos and grammatical errors. Fit and finish of a proposal goes a long way in convincing panelists, that your organization is well managed and organized and are well equipped to handle a city grant contract. So do all those steps before clicking the submit button. Click submit, and then you'll you'll get an email confirmation that your proposal is successfully submitted. You will then get an email in your inbox automatically generated with the instructions for mailing us a hard copy of the proposal, narrative components of your proposal. All right. I think I got through everything I wanted to. I will pause here for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A if we have some. Muna, do we have a long list?
No, Ben, I think you did a great job. Thank you so much for this thorough overview. There was a couple of questions. There was a question from Elizabeth in the chat. It goes back to audience metrics, number, data, specifically related to online activities. Elizabeth is wondering how specific we require such data if it's online.
Sure.
They can pull data from their web provider, Google Analytics. So, yeah.
Yeah, at the very least, we want you to be able to tell us, we reach this wide swath of audiences across such and such, geographic region, of which we can reliably say, X number are based in LA. We have a sense of at least the zip codes, so whereabouts the region they reside. Any more than that is certainly encouraged, but at the bare minimum, we want you to be able to tell us reliably how much of your online reach is based in LA, and the ability to tell us what zip codes, what neighborhoods they're in.
Great. Thank you. And then Windy Barnes in the chat is asking how to add a member or team to work on the application.
Sure.
Um,
Once you're logged in as a representative for your organization, you should find a section under your account called Manage Organization, where you can outline members who have access to the pending proposal. And you can even define teams of workers within that. That's a little bit more kind of like power user level. But we do have lots of applicants who utilize the members section, so you can enter users who would have access to your pending proposal. So log in, create an account. On the top right somewhere, you should see something that says Manage Organization, where you can find those options and tools.
Perfect. And I
All
would
right.
encourage everybody to email us if you have any further questions. I'm going to put our general email address in the chat. And thank you so much for attending, Ben.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Muna. Our contact information is up there on the screen. Email is the best way to get a hold of us. We're happy to respond to any questions. We are running Friday office hours, where if you'd like some more customized, tailored coaching and support, you can request a 20-minute appointment with us on Friday for Fridays. It's just important that we get your request by the preceding Wednesday, so you can schedule that in time. As I mentioned, we'll aim to get a recording of this session posted on DCA's YouTube channel in the next 1 or 2 days. Do look out for that. And other than that, we look forward to hearing about the wonderful projects you have planned for the city. Thank you for participating in today's session, and have a great rest of the day.